Without the United States of America, you are nobody. This statement was made by Donald Trump addressing European allies at the Economic Forum in Davos. This isn't a joke, it's a direct quote. Trump harshly criticized United States allies. Trump simply shouted in the faces of European leaders, telling them not to forget who is actually protecting them from the Russian and Chinese threats, and criticized Europe for what it has become. Trump lashed out with criticism at the leaders of France, Germany, the United Kingdom, and so on. As a result, key meetings with them were cancelled at the last moment. Trump stated that Canada and Israel exist as countries only thanks to America. Well, he said it directly about Canada, but hinted at Israel. And that's why the people of these countries should kind of weigh the words they say about America. He also stated that if Europe doesn't want to give Greenland to the Americans, he'll remember it and definitely take revenge. As the climax, Trump publicly called Putin and Zelensky stupid. But on the other hand, the days are gone when world leaders were cautious, around Trump, whose first year in office culminated in this. The crisis around Greenland only reinforced fears that the old order can no longer be saved. And now Emmanuel Macron and Friedrich Merz have openly declared the end of the global order led by the United States of America. They concluded that President Trump's relentless pressure exposed its fundamental flaws. They say Trump demonstrated how harmful it was. Now, in Europe, people are urging action instead of coddling Trump. The European Union is now preparing retaliatory tariffs against America worth billions of dollars. My name is Pechiy. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, give a like, and leave any comment under this episode. This is a big help in promoting content on YouTube, and I appreciate it. Also subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechiy News. The link is in the description of this video. There we post breaking news as it comes in. So, now let's break everything down. On Wednesday, during his speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, President Trump launched a criticism at overall, Trump's statement highlights how tense the relationship between the United States and Europe has become as he aims to seize Greenland. This goal surpasses old alliances and international norms. The main news event was Trump's statement to the gathered world and business leaders, which went like this, quote, "Without the United States, you have neither your countries nor anything without the United States." On the other hand, the United States allies meanwhile used Davos to oppose Trump's forceful methods and to express doubts about the advisability of a global order led by America. In this episode, I'll briefly go over how Trump lashed out at the allies, and I'll highlight specific cases. And the full analysis of Donald Trump's speech at the Economic Forum in Davos was on this YouTube channel yesterday, so if you haven't seen it yet, go to the channel, watch it, and subscribe. So, the first country Trump lashed out at is Denmark. As expected, Trump mentioned Denmark's defeat in World War II, claiming that it showed the Danes' inability to protect Greenland from a hostile takeover by Western opponents. And, according to Trump, this explains why Denmark should cede Greenland to the United States of America, quote, "Denmark fell under the onslaught of Germany in just 6 hours in the morning and was completely unable to defend any of its territories after Denmark's fall. The United States stepped up its efforts to protect Greenland and prevent it from being used by Germany during the war. Without us, you would all be speaking German now, and maybe a little Japanese. After the war, we returned Greenland to Denmark. How foolish it was of us to do that, but we did it. We returned Greenland to Denmark. But are they grateful now? Are they doing well?" Interestingly, throughout his speech, Trump mistakenly called Greenland Iceland, a mistake he often makes in public appearances. But importantly, Trump ruled out the possibility of using military force to seize Danish territory. Trump also mocked French President Emmanuel Macron for his attention-grabbing speech in which he wore sunglasses. Because of an eye condition, I think everyone saw that Macron had some problems with one of his eyes. It looked bloodshot, and that's why after that he started wearing sunglasses. So here Trump decided to make fun of him. When I called Emmanuel Macron, I saw him yesterday in those beautiful sunglasses. But what the heck happened? Trump also mentioned his conversation with the president of France, during which he put pressure on Macron, demanding that he raise the prices of prescription drugs. Otherwise, he would have faced high tariffs. Then Trump started making faces and mimicking Macron, who supposedly obediently said, quote, no, Donald, I won't do that. I will never do that. Then Trump switched to Canada, and here Trump, of course, responded to the sharp speech made by Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney the day before. I'll quote him a bit later about the split in the world order led by the United States of America, but for now, I'll give you a quote from Trump which showed that he was clearly offended. So, Trump says, by the way, Canada gets a lot of free benefits from us. They should also be grateful, but they are ungrateful. Yesterday I watched your Prime Minister's speech. He wasn't that grateful, but they should be grateful to us. Canada exists thanks to the United States. Remember that, Mark Carney, next time you make your statements. Trump didn't spare even Switzerland, the host country of the forum, and its leaders from criticism. Here's a quote. I know a lot of people from Switzerland, an incredible place, an incredibly beautiful place, but then I realized that they became so good only thanks to us. We made Switzerland so great. Switzerland without the United States of America is not Switzerland. And here something awkward happened with Trump. He said that some woman, whom he called the Prime Minister of Switzerland, but he couldn't remember her name, and the quote just made me feel extremely negative during the discussion about imposing tariffs. According to Donald Trump, he imposed the 39% tariff against Switzerland after a certain woman, the Prime Minister, told him that she was unhappy with the 30% tariff. He tried to joke about the situation. But here's the thing. Switzerland doesn't have a prime minister. The country is led by President Guy Parmelin, and he is clearly not a woman. So it remains a mystery who Trump was even talking about, who he spoke with, who made him nervous. Some woman, a prime minister, after talking to whom he imposed higher tariffs than he had planned. Well, basically everyone in the room just listened to this in confusion and thought, what was that all about? Trump didn't ignore Ukraine either. Trump said that the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, would be foolish not to agree to a deal with Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Quote, I believe that right now they've reached the point where they can come to an agreement and make a deal, and if they can't, then they'd be foolish. This applies to both, and while I know they're not stupid, failing to do it would make them seem that way. I don't mean to offend, but you must make this deal. Too many are dying, it's not worth it. It's interesting that Trump, who promised to end Russia's war against Ukraine in 24 hours, is now saying that Europe should handle it and he might help. The United Kingdom also got criticized. Trump openly questioned the United Kingdom's energy strategy and prices, insulting the country's oil barriers in the North Sea. He said that the United Kingdom, quote, is located above the North Sea, one of the largest reserves in the world. But they don't use it, and that's one of the reasons why their energy supply has dropped to a catastrophically low level with equally high prices. But notably, the days are gone when world leaders, especially Europeans, were cautious around Donald Trump, whose first year in office during his second term only reinforced fears that the old order can no longer be saved. It's already obvious that the old world order doesn't work, and those who are trying to cling to it one last time are making a huge mistake. Importantly, the Europeans have realized this. The Europeans suddenly declared that the world order in which the United States was the hegemon has finally collapsed, and the Europeans suddenly started speaking directly. The president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, compared Donald Trump's hostility toward allies to what she called the Nixon shock. 1971, the moment when the United States overturned the post-war economic order by abandoning the gold standard. So von der Leyen called for Europe's permanent independence from the United States, warning that waiting for things to return to normal after Trump would only increase Europe's vulnerability, saying it's time to stop living in illusions. The problem isn't just Trump. The United States as a whole is no longer an ally. French President Emmanuel Macron condemned Trump's endless introduction of new tariffs as fundamentally unacceptable, especially when it's used as leverage against territorial sovereignty. And overall, in the end, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney delivered the most straightforward verdict, telling the audience in Davos the following: "Let me be clear, we are in the process of a rupture, not a transition." We knew that the story about a rules-based international order was partly false, that the strongest would make exceptions for themselves whenever it was convenient, that trade rules are applied asymmetrically, that international law is enforced with varying degrees of strictness depending on the identity of the accused or the victim. This fiction was useful because American hegemony provided global public goods, from open sea routes to a stable financial system. But this deal no longer works. Great powers now use economic integration, which has long been the foundation of globalization, as a weapon. As you know, Trump responded to this statement. Mark Carney made a very sharp statement saying that Canada should not forget that it exists only thanks to the Americans and that Mark Carney should think about what he says. Ultimately, the European Union is weighing a €93 billion package of retaliatory tariffs against the United States. And Emmanuel Macron stated that the European Union should not hesitate and is simply obliged to hit America with full force. This is madness. Of course, I regret it. But this is a consequence of the unpredictability and pointless aggressiveness on the part of the United States. As a result, Hungary became the only European country to join the recently established Trump Peace Council. The others refused. As a result, note that the Prime Minister of Denmark decided to skip the Economic Forum in Davos altogether and didn't come at all. Emmanuel Macron demonstratively left Switzerland right before Donald Trump arrived there. At the same time, the leaders of Germany and the United Kingdom said they were ready to meet with Trump, but only if such a meeting in an expanded format would be organized by NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Global issues will be discussed there. Otherwise, both Keir Starmer and Friedrich Merz stated that they do not want to meet with Donald Trump on other topics. And I will end this episode with a quote from the Prime Minister of Belgium, Bart de Wever, which clearly describes the current attitude of Europeans towards America. Quote, "If we back down now, we will lose our dignity. There is no longer any point in being soft on the United States. If someone comes and says, 'I want to take back your NATO territory, otherwise I will start a trade war,' then in that case, we should be the ones to start the trade war first." I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation or paid subscription using the links and details in the description of this video, as well as the QR code on your screens. I appreciate your support. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.